Hey guys, and welcome back to the High Level Podcast. Thank you so much for joining. This is going to be the first episode of 2025. I hope you guys had an amazing New Year and Christmas. And if you guys are new to the show, this is where we introduce you to science and engineering news on a weekly basis, just to keep you up to date on the things shaping South Africa and ultimately our world. This week, I have 3 stories for you. The first one is going to be about AI and its insatiable urge to just eat electricity. Then we're talking a bit about Eskom, and then finally we're on to solar panels in South Africa. So I really hope you guys enjoy the episode. And with that said, let's get stuck into the episode. So guys, we go on to story number 1, AI's insatiable hunger for power. Now, if you haven't seen the headlines lately, a lot of big tech is busy putting a few concentrated bets on nuclear power to power their artificial intelligence facilities. Artificial intelligence, I think we can all agree, is reshaping our world, and it's in everything these days. It's from searches to chatbots to ordering your groceries. It is all over the place. But here's the kicker. It consumes a jaw-dropping amount of electricity. Just to give you an example, in 2022, data centers, which now house all these servers powering AI, consumed about 1.65 billion gigajoules of electricity. And that's about 2% of the world's demand for electricity. Now, by 2026, it's estimated that that amount could increase by 126%, consuming AI itself and data centers, consuming the same amount as the country of Germany. So let's talk a bit about numbers here. A single ChatGPT query uses about 10 kilojoules of electricity. Now, that might not seem like a lot to you, but that's 10 times the amount of electricity that a normal Google search takes. Now, imagine we take Google search out of this and we just use ChatGPT to do all our internet searches. That's going to be a massive amount of power. So much, in fact, that just Google searches turning into AI searches, that alone could need the power required by Ireland in a full year. Now, cooling down these servers adds another layer of complexity. Obviously, these are electronic components. They need to be cooled down at some point. At Google's very efficient data centers, they estimate that they might use 10% more electricity just to cool down the servers if we move completely over to AI. And this is Google. This is one of the most efficient companies in the world. If we look globally with companies not as efficient as Google, we could be looking at electricity increases of up to 50% in those specific data centers if we move over to processing using artificial intelligence and large language models more distinctly. So what's the solution? Well, companies like Microsoft, Google, and Amazon are turning to nuclear power, as we thought they might. Microsoft has signed agreements with advanced reactor developers, and Amazon is even investing in a nuclear company called X Energy. So this is a high-tech answer to the high energy demands required by artificial intelligence. And actually, I think it might be the right move. It's a cleaner form of energy and very reliable. So I've got a quote here from Sasha Luciano. I might be saying that wrong. I do apologize. She's a researcher at the French-American AI firm Hugging Face, and she has this to say. She says that the generative AI revolution comes with a planetary cost that is completely unknown to us. And the spread for me is particularly indicative. Basically, she says the TLDR is simply that we just don't know. Speaking about the cost there, the planetary cost, the monetary cost, the electricity cost. So the big question remains, is AI worth the planetary cost? I sort of stand on the fence between the two, but I would love to hear your thoughts on this. So please feel free, drop a comment below. Do you think it's worth it to dedicate this much of our electricity towards AI, or do you think there's better uses for it? So now we move on to our big brother, Mr. Eskom, and wow, they had a rough last financial year. It's no secret that Eskom had a rough 2024. So this would be the financial year. So that started from March of 2023 all the way to the end of February 2024. And it was a rough one. We had the worst load shedding on record in South African's history. We had escalating municipal debt across the country, and they had a massive, massive tax loss. And this is a ridiculous amount of money. When it comes out of my mouth, you're going to be astounded. 55 billion rand after tax loss. That is an insane amount of money for our number one electricity supplier to be having. So let's break it down a bit here. Over the 2024 financial year, Eskom spent about 33.9 billion rand on open cycle gas turbines. So this is to supplement the normal turbines that were offline due to maintenance breakdowns, whatever the story was. And that was literally just to keep the lights on. So 33.9 billion rand on open cycle gas turbines. And electricity theft also cost them a lot. It cost them about 13.9 terawatt hours being stolen illegally and obviously not being recovered for by payments. And to that once-off accounting adjustment when they unbundled the transmission company. So for those of you that don't know, Eskom has tried to unbundle some of its departments, and one of those is the transmission company, which has been successfully unbundled. And there was a bit of financials there, and they took a little bit of an adjustment loss, whatever that means to the accountants. But we had the perfect storm. Massive spend on open cycle gas turbines, a lot of stealing, and a little bit of accounting thingies going on there with the unbundling. We really had the perfect storm to get such a big tax loss. But I think there's good news for the future to come. Eskom hasn't implemented load shedding in over 250 days. To all the South Africans out there, you can celebrate right now. A welcome relief to a lot of South Africans. They've also slashed turbine costs by 11.9 billion rand, and they're projecting an after-tax profit for the 2025 year, which is going to end now in February of 2025, of about 10 billion rand. So that's a full almost 65 billion rand swing from that 55 billion rand loss into a profit of 10 billion rand. So the real question becomes, what's changed? Well, there's been a lot of government debt relief. In the 2024 tax year, they got a 78 billion rand fund from government to help with a bit of their debt. It's a lot of money. They also had an approval of a 12.74% tariff hike, and they've had tighter internal controls, whatever that means. This is most the press release. They just say these things. They've had tighter internal controls, and they've improved Eskom's liquidity a bit. So now the focus comes back to operations. How do we make the operations more efficient and cost effective? The challenges still remain, though. Let's be honest, we as South Africans know there's challenges with Eskom. And one of the biggest challenges is municipal debt. Municipalities simply not collecting from their customers and paying it over to Eskom. They expect this value to balloon to over 95 billion rand in 2025. So it's a hard thing to really get over, this massive municipal debt. So is Eskom turning a corner? For me, I'm hopeful. I think we've had a lot of progress. We haven't had load shedding since the 26th of March, 2024. And Eskom's availability factor, which is basically how much they can produce versus what's offline, has been over 60% for the last 7 months. So I think they're doing well, but I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments below. And now we end on a bit of a brighter note, literally. South Africa's solar PV capacity grew by an impressive 12% in 2024, reaching a total of 8.97 gigawatts of installed capacity. That's nearly 1 gigawatt added in this year, in this previous year alone, with private sectors leading the charge in this installation. Solar energy isn't just powering homes and businesses, in fact. It's reshaping the economy, creating a whole new sector in the economy. This year, the industry created jobs, it fostered new skills development, and it displaced over 4,260 tons of CO2 emissions. And the future looks even sunnier with 375 megawatts of capacity scheduled for production in 2025. And again, the question becomes, what's driving this growth? Well, obviously, we've seen a lot of tariff increase suggestions from Eskom. So rising electricity prices will drive people towards solar, especially as the cost of solar comes down, and the demand for energy independence, so people wanting to be in control of production of their own electricity. And it's a fairly easy addition to make to any one of your houses. Meanwhile, utility scale projects are also expanding despite regulatory relays and grid blockages. SAPIA, the South African Photovoltaic Industry Association, the industry's advocacy group, have said that they're pushing for smarter grids and better energy storage to address these challenges. And they've also partnered with financial services such as banks to help small businesses access funding and ensuring that no one gets left in the dark if load shedding ever comes back, but also to create that grid independence that we spoke about. So although some of the demand has died up since we've gone a bit out of load shedding, like I said, 250 days without load shedding, it's a great accomplishment from Eskom's side, but it's always a good thing to have a little bit more grid independence based on solar. So South Africans are still looking to spend on solar. But I want to know from you guys, will you be doing any sort of solar additions to your house in 2025 or your small business? Please, I'd really love to know. Or are you going to be like me and sit back and watch? I'm really interested to see what type of municipal installations are going to come online to sort of supplement and maybe give us, the consumer, a bit of relief on the electricity price increases planned. There you go, guys. That almost wraps up another episode of the High Level Podcast. From AI's energy demands, which are absolutely massive, to Eskom's escalating municipal debt, all the way up to solar voltaics. I think the journey is going to be bumpy, but there's a sense of optimism in South Africa for 2025. If you guys have enjoyed today's episode, please do not forget to subscribe. It really, really helps the channel out. And if you watched this far, you're invested. Come on, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification button. We really, really appreciate you. And before you guys go, please take with you here our obscure quote of the week, which is from none other than Franz Kafka himself, the Czechoslovakian, do I just say Czech novelist. He says that I have the true feeling of myself only when I am unbearably unhappy. So there we go, a nice way to finish off, a little bit of existential dread to keep you guys a bit interested in the podcast. Until next time, I hope you guys have an amazing week. Stay curious and keep pushing past your limits. I'll catch you guys in the next one.